In this video, I'm going to give you the reasons I feel optimistic that the Philippines will soon reopen to foreign tourists. And when I say soon, I don't mean in 6 months' time, but more so in the next 2 to 3 months maximum. I know many of you will say I'm crazy for having such an outlook, as the Philippines seems very disinterested at this time in reopening borders to foreign tourists. But hear me out as to why I feel this is about to change rather dramatically. So be sure to buckle up and stay with me here. Now I stress what I'm about to tell you is based solely on my own opinion, and I'm not a virologist or scientist in any capacity. I'm a man that's been following keenly much data around the Omicron variant over the past 5 weeks or so since it took hold in South Africa before firing up in the UK and now firing up in many other countries. And what happens with this variant, I believe, will be what countries react to once the data is irrefutable. So what I'm saying is the data to date is clearly very positive. Whilst Omicron is far more transmissible, and in fact, will all most likely catch it, it's also showing that for most people, it's no worse than a common cold as far as symptoms go, and even only a few days of an infectious period. Right now, you can be sure all governments, including the Philippines government, will be looking at this data on a daily basis. But for another few weeks, they may err on the side of caution in order to make sure these positive trends continue. Once they see for certain that Omicron is no worse for most people than the common cold, they'll change their stance. In effect, Omicron has done the world a huge favour by displacing the much more severe Delta variant. This is why I believe at some point in the next few months, the World Health Organization will downgrade the pandemic to an endemic. If by this point the Philippines has not reopened, I'm sure once the World Health Organization downgrade the virus, then the Philippines will finally reopen. I know many of us were positive before, especially when the Philippines was to reopen on December 1st, 2021. But this time I do feel it will be far different, as the positive data will be irrefutable. And let's face it, no country wants to cut off a large supply of money if they don't have to. Now when the Philippines reopens to foreign tourists, what this will look like is anyone's guess, as we commonly see the Philippines tackle these type of things in a different way. By this time, Omicron will dominate Delta in the Philippines, and it will spread rapidly throughout the country as it's done in South Africa, London, and is now doing in Australia and the US, and you can be sure the same story will be told worldwide. So what this means for the Philippines is that they'll have a huge amount of natural immunity as well as immunity from vaccines. Most people will be able to rest at home for 4 or 5 days and they'll be fine, and many others may have no symptoms at all. The Philippines, like the rest of the world, will manage this much in the same way as they do with influenza right now. And when we think back before the pandemic, no one was too concerned about catching the flu, and certainly no borders were closed or restrictions imposed at that time. Now, as I said at the start of the video, this is only my opinion based on what I've learned over the past 5 weeks or so. I get some great unbiased and factual information from Dr. John Campbell's YouTube channel, where he has almost 2 million subscribers, and the information he provides really puts this whole pandemic into perspective. Some may call me crazy for my view here, but I'm very confident that I'll get the last laugh for those people who think this way. Yes, there may very likely be new variants come along, but the facts would tend to show that any new variant from this point on would struggle to outcompete the highly transmissible Omicron variant. What I do know is the world is far better off with Omicron than Delta, and it brings us much closer to the end of the pandemic and being able to travel freely around the world once more, including into the Philippines. Now, this video is not to start a debate on conspiracy theories, as this is not the channel for that, but more so for those who are losing hope of getting into the Philippines. I assure you, there is hope, which you'll see over the coming weeks, so don't give up just yet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.